Hey, what's up, everybody? I just coming today with part 9, or chapter 9, I suppose, of the Path of Radiance hard mode draft, and I think I accidentally forgot to record on the first turn, but it's not like there was much that was missed. I just moved a bunch of units around, and I don't even think I made any attacking actions, but basically setting the pace for the rest of the chapter. But as you can see with last chapter as well, now Oscar is level pretty beastly now. He's gained 2 levels since I get bonus experience abused him, and it's just a matter of him killing everyone else as fast as possible now. It's not, which kind of makes sense, but and with that right there, the ward staff I had been talking about for quite a while. In the last video, it's a great source of early experience for your healers if you have missed and you don't want a bonus experience abuse her right away. Just give her that few levels or so with the ward staff just to save a little bonus experience. And I wanted to start leveling Ilyana now, but I know she's far too weak to be able to help out with the main force of the army, being that of Oscar and Ike. And the 2 Laguz units who are partners. So I just sent her up top. I knew she'd be able to double those soldiers depending on the random stats they had generated, so it took a few resets to get her back to being able to do that, and it helped out a lot because it gave her a little bit more experience. You'll see that most of her leveling was done through bonus experience until she promotes, in which I mostly only use bonus experience to finish out a level for her, as opposed to just giving her straight up levels. So, and thankfully, for the sake of a draft, partner units are fair game for everyone, whatever times they're used. So the Laguz in this chapter, and then you have Tabarn in chapter 28, I believe. So if you're having trouble with that, especially if you don't have a flyer, you can use him mostly to take out a lot of the forces that you wouldn't want. And also with Chapter 17, he'll also help take out Oliver for you if it takes that long. You shouldn't take more than 6 turns, just for the sake that Tabarn will get up there, kill everyone, and then kill him. You'll lose out on the Adept Scroll if you do that, but if you're not going to get there in time, just allow him to kill the boss. So that's what I suggest. But the cool thing is for those that don't have many early game units, at least at this point, Lethe and Mordecai will proceed to rape practically everyone else on this map, and it's not much of an issue. So you should have a similar turn count. It's based on just how fast Ike can get down there, and he should be able to get down there within 7 or so turns. It might take a little longer just based on killing people, but he does have the ability to get down there pretty quickly. If you have Reese and you don't want to heal anyone, you could use most of your units at this point to just shove him to give him a little bit more extra movement, but just make sure you draft them, the people who are doing so before that, otherwise you'll take a penalty. And the cool thing about Mordecai is I know he doesn't transform, but in either way he's still distracting enemies at this point, and he's got enough defense he'll really have a hard time dying by the time he promotes, or not promotes, but transforms. And yeah, Oscar is definitely now in MVP rape mode for this portion of the game as well, especially after he promotes, which I do want to talk about that as well. For your mounted units, whichever ones you have, I definitely recommend axes no matter what paladin you're using. Axes after promotion, or if you have Kieran, to already have axes. Axes are by and large the most useful weapon type for the paladins on an efficiency run concern. I'd probably just make personal choice based on whatever weapon I liked more for the character if I was doing a normal run, but trust me, Oscar so far using axes was an incredible choice because lances are already pretty accurate. I already have 2 sword users already, so I don't really need it, and he's got generally high skill, at least for me. Later on that won't matter. I know he has 8 skill when he promotes in this run, but all of his other stats were so high, I didn't really care to remedy that. But Oscar's just, he was way better with axes. Hand axes have more uses than most ranged weapons, like and more base damage than the javelin, which helps a lot later on. I didn't want to just have him rely on javelins because hand axes are just some of the best weapons in the game for the fact that they're pretty powerful, especially against enemies like, you know, low defense enemies. They'll be raped. In high defense enemies, you have that to weaken them, and then you can just rush in with a silver axe or whatever high-powered weapon you need. But axes are efficient in the fact that they are very cheap. I think hand axes are one of the cheapest weapons in the game, next to iron axes. But steel axes are very cheap as well. And they have 35 uses. Steel weapons are probably the best in the game, in the fact that they're very useful up until damn near until the end of the game, and at least to kill things in one round. Then you'll start needing silvers. But either way, I do recommend going axes for all of your mounted units. And if flying units could use mounted axes, so peg knights rather, I would wish they could get axes, but it just doesn't make sense for them to. But yeah, if you have a flyer such as Jill or Har, just pretty much give them axes from the moment you promote them or get them in terms of Har, just because axes are way more useful than lances, I've found. Because later in the game, the weapon triangle doesn't really mean anything. Your units will have such high hit that it'll be very rare for you to miss or get screwed off by that. So, yeah, that's my tip for the day. I gave Kieran swords, and I don't think he ever used one. So, in terms of him, you know, it just doesn't really matter. Choose whatever you want. I probably should have just given him bows, just so I could have a bow user. But I don't recommend archers for the most part in the draft. Like, even if you have Astrid, that's fine. She can be bonus experience abused to a high level pretty decently. And I would just give her axes upon promotion as well, just because bows, by and large, are very inefficient weapons for a draft. They can take out high value targets and sometimes shorten things up, but overall, the main problem with bows is that they have an inability to attack on the enemy phase generally. If you're clustered up, which you probably will be most of the time with all your mounted units or high movement units rushing forward, they're not going to attack your archer. Like, I know you want them to, but your archers, enemy archers, are not going to attack your archers unless they have no other choice. And to have them have no other choice, you can't have any other units in range. And trust me, your mounted units and high movement units will be everywhere. They are going to be your MVPs most of the time, which is why I still recommend giving Ike the boots and the Night Ring when you get them, due to the fact that there are some pretty lengthy map siege chapters later on, and having him have that extra movement as opposed to a mounted unit is a bit overkill, especially when you have Savior Scroll coming in at chapter 20 something, I believe, 24 I think, and the Savior Scroll isn't terribly useful outside of that until about chapter 26. So I do recommend giving Ike the boots just for the fact that he'll be able to be more efficient in moving across the field, as opposed to a mounted unit rescuing him due to the speed loss. And it will affect you because you won't be able to double as many people. Even later on in the game, a max speed unit like Tanith, mine, wouldn't have been able to double enemies, and she's got low strength. 23 is not a high cap whatsoever. It's enough if you give her a max forged silver weapon or a steel weapon for the mid game chapters, or a start of late game, I should say. But later on, she will need a lot of help to one-round enemies, and that's why I believe I gave her Resolve, because her Avoid can shake off at some points, as she's not perfect, and no flying unit is, depending on their stats. Even with a full guard, I mean, arrows won't be a problem, but you will have issues with with a void in some cases. I know it's very rare for her to die, but I think this is the end of the chapter after I ward him, so I will talk to you guys later, and thanks for watching.